they're claiming a mandate for this, even though they won only 32% of the primary vote. And worse though, they didn't really fully explain these policies before the election. So it's had to hit the ground running with ways to reach these targets. And the first cab off the rank was Chris Bowen announcing hundreds of windmills off Australian beaches, some of them adjacent to urban areas. Matt, you might recall that Asset Energy's application to renew its licence to explore for gas off the coast between Sydney and Newcastle was rejected this year, partly because many coastal residents thought the gas well would be an eyesore. Now, Matt, how are those residents going to respond to 200 windmills being installed just off the beach?
Well, I don't know, Fred. I'm sure some of them would potentially welcome this, perhaps till they find out how many have to go in there. Look, I'm not against industrial development. I'm not against renewable energy. We can and should install some components of renewable energy, has a role in our system, but there isn't such a thing as too much of a good thing. And right now, our energy system has too much power that's weather dependent, that relies on the weather. And now, when obviously every day there's a thing called night, which does shock some so-called energy experts, but the sun goes down every day. And then if it's not very windy at night, we've got real troubles. We've got real troubles keeping our lights on. It's going to get worse before it gets better because more coal-fired power stations are due to shut in the next few years. So we've got to have less power that's dependent on the weather and more power that is available 24/7. As I've said before, renewable energy they're the dole bludgers of our energy system. They only turn up to work when they want to. They don't work full time, and we need full-time power to bring back Australian manufacturing, to make sure we can keep power prices down for Australians, especially as their living costs rise. And renewable energy is just not cutting it. We've got to have a mix of different technologies. So this pursuit of offshore wind is an obsession of the Labor Green Alliance that is only going to continue to damage our competitiveness unless we see sense soon.
Well, Matt, speaking of bludgers, I looked at the Sydney Morning Herald has run a report on this very topic, and I looked at it online a minute ago. I couldn't help noticing that all the comments underneath were essentially pretty positive, you know, saying that these are symbols of us looking after the environment for future generations and so on and so on. What nobody mentioned in those comments, nobody mentioned in the story, and certainly Chris Bowen didn't mention, is how much they're going to be subsidised by. Now, you know, you say they're bludgers, dole bludgers. I mean, how much dole are we going to pay these windmills, mate? Do you know?
Well, it's very opaque now. It's hard to work out exactly how much assistance comes from governments to these sort of projects these days. The former coalition government, the Liberal National Government, we did end what was known as the renewable energy target. That finished in 2020. So there are no direct subsidies from the federal government, or no standing subsidies. They can apply for grants, these projects, and different concessional loans from the federal government. That's transparent, although we don't know yet with these projects whether they'll get that. But what is hard to work out is the contracts that state governments are signing with renewable energy projects. All state governments have programs that do this these days. And we get told we're not allowed to see the details of those because they're commercial in confidence and they have to negotiate more. So you actually don't really know how much you're paying. It will turn up on your bill and you can see your bills going up. Part of those increases is because we've got to back these investors, often from overseas, often from China, a lot of renewable energy companies. We've got to pay them through our electricity bills for these investments. It is a complete and utter scam.